So today we have a pretty somber episode where I'm going to be talking about the Bondi incident that occurred, and it's going to be pretty I don't know, there'll be details and things that are kind of distressing, so just a warning to you if you're, disturbed by these kinds of things. We're going to be talking about it. It's pretty serious, and it's also very sad. I think that, very distressing news, very sad, and it's very surreal as an Australian to hear about this thing that's happening, because I think the day that it happened, I think was the same day that the Brown shooting happened, the shooting at Brown University. And so when I heard my partner talking about guns and, shootings and stuff, he was talking to his friends about it. I thought he was just talking about the Brown University shooting, which of course is also devastating. I think that in some ways though, I didn't hear it nearly as much of that than I did the Bondi ended up. So I'm not sure about what happened with the Bondi the Brown shooting. I didn't really look into it all too much, mostly because, man, the shooting's just really horrible. It's horrible how desensitized I think the world has kind of become to shootings, particularly in America. I think as I was getting up the docket of all the things I want to talk about today, I was looking at all these different shootings that had been happening, and there were so many that had happened this year that I had never heard of. I had no idea it happened. It was just, it's insane that the value for human life has just become so, I don't know, is it a problem where we don't value human life? I think it's certainly an issue where it's just happened so much that we just don't think twice about it. But then when it happens to, Australia, when my partner was like, hey, do you have Twitter? I was like, yeah, I have Twitter. He was like, look up Bondi. And I was just like, oh my god, are you saying there was a shooting at Bondi? The Bondi Beach? And I was like, what? I was like, okay, well, surely it wasn't a big thing or anything. Maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe some people a couple people got injured, maybe they were, stopped before they could do anything really heinous. And that was me hoping, right? I was hoping it wasn't going to be that bad, because no one wants a horrendous thing like that to happen, like what happened. And so, yeah, I think so far 16 people have been killed or, ended up dying, pronounced dead, whatever you want to say about it. And we're going to get into, I guess the details of it soon. But I really just wanted to say that it's devastating. I mean, I read about, there was a little girl, I think she was 10 years old. She was killed. There was a father of, I think, 5 who was killed. And there was even a fucking Holocaust survivor who was killed. A Holocaust survivor. Holocaust? I don't know why I say Holocaust. No, it was a Holocaust survivor. And which is holy shit, you don't see many Holocaust survivors at all anymore. Most of them have most of them are 100 years old or something, So that's a pretty so there's been some misinformation floating around about the shooters, which I have to say, it's we don't need that. We do not need misinformation, false stuff spread about them, because it doesn't help whatever case that is trying to be helped. In fact, I don't even believe that the misinformation spread about the shooters is in the name of, helping the Palestinian movement or protecting, I guess Muslims and their religion. It in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if the misinformation coming out was all a thing that came out of 4chan or something like that, right? Because there's a lot of arguments around, you know, was this an anti-Semitic attack? Was this an operation by Israel to sacrifice some of their own people in the name of making people feel sympathy for Israelis or Jewish people? There's been a lot of that stuff. So I thought it was important to talk about it and use my platform. As small as it may be, I think it's important to talk about what is out there, and I just think that that's like not okay. I don't know. I just think like I'm all for, you know, freeing Palestine. I think that the Israeli government has been absolutely reprehensible. The IDF, these, like, what has been happening to the Palestinian people, it's like, it is literally unfathomable what they have been experiencing. And again, like, I'm saying this because like I truly believe that, but at the same time I think that what's really scary is the amount of not only anti-Semitism that has been rising, you know, online. You literally cannot not see anti-Semitism everywhere. Anything about anyone, it's like, oh, this actor, they're Jewish. Oh, it's like, oh, like this thing, that's obviously a Jewish thing. And it's actually crazy how pervasive it has become. And it's not even just Jewish people, it's, I think, how do I say this? Indian people. Indian people have been receiving so much widespread hate, particularly online, and I don't know if it's different for different countries, but I'm talking more from like the Australian perspective and what I've been seeing as an Australian. Unfortunately, I get a lot of like Australian TikToks on my feed. I know TikTok, oh, right. But it is genuinely really terrifying how literally every single Australian TikTok I get that isn't like someone who's like a jokey comedian type person, anything that is to do with news, anything that is to do with you know, politics or what's happening in the world, everything, every single time, the comment section is full of oh, it's, you know, the Indian people, they're, you know, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. And it's also really it's not difficult to see that the news media in Australia has been very particular about pushing the point about, you know, the crime rates, the incidents with like certain groups. You know, it's like it wasn't that long ago, I think back when I was in uni, that they were talking about like African gangs or something, and then all of a sudden we're not hearing about African gangs anymore, and it's like, well, okay, well, what happened with that? They just disappeared or something? Perhaps they were never there in the first place. The problem is with Australia is it's like, it's kind of like, who fucking knows at this point, because you really can't trust any like Australian media. And the problem is that the Australian traditional medias, like the news stations or whatever the fuck, they have started to spread their vitriol to TikTok, and I've been getting videos from them on TikTok, and like the news machine is just churning out so much content about crime, you know, like very anti-immigration type of things. And I think as a response, people have started to become a lot more anti-immigration, and I think that's happened everywhere in the world. I think everywhere is kind of a little bit anti-immigration-y. People are starting to get more and more, I don't want to say radicalized, but people are starting to see different, I mean, maybe it was always like this, but I feel like people have become more open and about with how they see different skin colors, or people who are like, you know, here on visas and stuff like that. And I just feel like I'm kind of going crazy in a way, because I see the media churning out all this very specific stuff, and I think to myself, like, there is an agenda behind this. The media doesn't just start running these stories for no reason. They always do it for a purpose. There's always a purpose. And You have to have that particular mentality when it comes to Australian media. You just have to, because all of our media is owned and run by, the Murdoch media, right? And it's just, I don't know, it's incredibly difficult to think that, I feel like we all know this, and yet people still, they still watch these videos, these compilations, and they think like, oh my god, Australia's going to the toilet, Australia's so fucked, we're so bad. And it's like, I actually looked at the Australian crime statistics, and 2016 was actually like our worst year, I think, since we started recording crimes in like the 70s or the 80s or something. And the problem with our crime at the moment is that we are experiencing, what do you call it? It's like the recidivism rate. People are returning, they're like getting out, and they're continuing to keep going with crimes. And the problem is like youth crime, for instance. Youth criminals, or whatever you want to call them, we're not getting more like new recruits of like youth criminals. We're having the same youth criminals commit over and over and over again. And so we actually did introduce stricter bail laws fairly recently. But yeah, I think it's tough because there are so many issues that have all been happening, and I think particularly, I think we're seeing a lot of fallout from stuff like COVID, right? COVID was a tremendous hit to the education system, our children, society's children and stuff. And I think we're seeing the fallout of that in some way, because, when people are not educated, when they come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, like there's all these different factors that lead people to committing crimes, right? And I think that, what do we do about it, right? What can we do about it? I think there's this generation of kids we're not looking at who are becoming very lost very quickly. And although I don't agree with the social media ban, I do think that in a lot of ways what we're seeing here, and some of the stuff we'll go through, is that the internet has been a very big factor in radicalizing young people. And listen, I think I'd still need to look at some more of like the details behind the Australian issues with like crime and stuff. But another thing I wanted to point out is that there was CCTV footage released maybe like a month or two ago of a white woman who went up to an Asian girl who was just going to work. It was the morning, she was just headed to work, and the woman, she walks by the Asian girl, and the race does matter here, in my opinion. And the white woman, she just looks at her and she just stabs her in the stomach. It's just an innocent person on their way to work. And I think they found out that the woman who had stabbed the girl, she, I think she was like a homeless person. She was mentally ill. She was known to the police. And again, it's like we don't even have ways to take care of these people who are, homeless, they're mentally ill, they're dealing with a lot of difficulties themselves. And of course, no one talks about like her race and her intentions and her religion, because I don't know, it's like when we see like white people commit crimes, we go like, oh well, what happened to them? They must have been really down in their luck, or they must have been really going through something. And I don't know, it's just crazy. It's just really, really crazy to me to see how much there is like a double standard with these things, and how it's like, it's so clear to me, but everyone else, everywhere else around me, everyone's like, oh well, you know what, they were this race, they were this religion, so it's only a matter of time, or like expecting that these things are like characteristic of like a characteristic predictor of doing bad things. Like, I don't believe that, black people commit crime because of their DNA or something stupid like that. Like, I don't believe that. We don't believe that. So I just don't understand why it's become this thing where we expect all immigrants or all, like, I don't know, Muslim people to be like these really fringe, I don't know, radical extremist people. And I do think that a big part of it is really coming from just like the news media. And it's a really big problem because we can't tell who we can trust to give us information. And I think a thing that I'm noticing is there's a lot of people, especially young people, who are less interested or invested in politics. They're less interested in learning about history. And it's like a thing where it's like, oh, I can choose to opt out of politics. I mean, you can go ahead and enjoy politics or whatever. It's like, I don't necessarily enjoy politics, but I think it's very important to actually know what's going on. And another thing is that I think that this attitude of like, I don't need to know politics, I don't need to know history, I think that is the exact attitude that makes you ripe to be, I guess, radicalized, but also to very easily be swayed from like one position to another. Because if you don't know anything, for instance, about like, you know, World War II, let's just say, if you don't know anything about World War II and you're just like, I don't know, I guess like something bad happened but I don't know what it was, someone who knows more, or at least someone who has enough of like knowledge about World War II, could tell you anything. They could tell you anything about what happened, and you're just like, oh, well, you know, that sounds... You're telling it to me like it sounds right, you know? So I guess that's true. And I think that's happening more and more in the world. And that's really, really bad. I don't think I have to say that. That's really, really bad. We should not be having this difficulty where... oh my god, I just like... I'm... Here's an example, right? Not to plug my stream or anything, but I was streaming last Friday or something, and people started talking in my chat about like the Canadians and what the Canadians did during like World War I or some shit. I have no clue what happened there. I'll be the first to admit, I'm not actually educated on that stuff. There's a lot of things in the world that I'm not educated on that I admittedly do need to become more knowledgeable about. Because you know how easy it is for people to just come in and be like, hey, so yeah, the Canadians were crazy, they did all this stuff and yada yada yada, and like, it sounds insane to me, but I'm like, okay, well, I don't actually know what happened, but I don't know, I guess these people are coming, they're saying they're experts, like, maybe it's true. I mean, for me personally, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna have to look this up and see for myself. But a lot of people, they don't do that. It comes from someone they trust, and they think like, okay, I guess I trust this person to tell me the right thing. And it's like, well, what if the person you trust is someone who spends all their nights on like 4chan or on like fucking... I don't even know the places you go. TCC, I heard. There's this place called TCC, which is all about glorifying not school, but like shooters in general, like doing these big gory crimes and stuff, like gore in general, and white supremacism or something. You don't know, but you trust someone. They could be entering those areas of the internet where they're radicalized like that. And that's why I'm so dismayed. I don't know, I get so disappointed when I hear people I know being like, I don't care about politics, I don't care about history. Because at one point in my life, I did not care about history. I spent most of my time studying art, trying to do all like art stuff. And then it wasn't until I kind of entered like college or like uni that I was like, I need to learn more about the world. It's actually insane when you don't know anything about what happened anywhere. Really insane, right? And a lot of the time, we're actually at the mercy of our schooling education as well, I think. I think school is so important in developing just like how you think about things, how you research things. Like, when I talk to like my American friends, for instance, and they tell me about how, you know, schools in America, they don't really teach what happened, like the history of like how Americans came to, or I don't know, how the people came to America and then took the land and yada yada yada. Like, I cannot fathom having like a sweet story be told about that, because in Australia, or at least in my experience with my schools, I remember, I think for like the entirety of my primary school education, it was really drilled into us like what happened and the absolute atrocities that occurred, and just how, you know, bloodthirsty it was, and how we totally fucked over the Indigenous Australians, and we still continue to fuck over the Indigenous Australians to this day. But yeah, so I can't imagine actually going to a school where it's like, oh, we all went and we all sat down at the table and we all had a turkey and it was really wonderful, and oh, we were all laughing and giggling, and then don't ask about what happened about the, you know, Indigenous people. There's nothing to see there. Everything's fine. Yippee! I genuinely can't fathom that. It's insane to me. So yeah, I think that we have so many issues with like our schooling, our education. I think there are so many issues that have all kind of come about and accumulated to like this, I don't know, like at the same time, it's like, I think, yeah, the internet has become this place where people become more and more isolated in their real lives, and then they become more and more emboldened in these niche communities that they find, and they start to really believe more and more about, like, you know, these weird fucked up things that they think. Like, ordinarily, you know, if you said to a close family member, like, oh, I get really nervous every time I, you know, see, you know, a person of color or something, and then your family member goes like, why the fuck would you think that? That's stupid and that's racist. And then, like, actually someone who will question or like challenge your beliefs, that is so important to have that. And if you don't have someone who will challenge your beliefs and like what you think and how you're developing your mind, then there's no checks and balances to keep you, I don't know, checked, I guess. So like these isolationist sort of like tendencies that we're seeing, especially like since COVID, because COVID, everyone was online. COVID, everyone was isolated from one another, and it's just, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of rambling here. I know it's been 20 minutes of me rambling, so let's get right into this stuff. But I mean, really think about like what I said, I guess, hopefully. But yeah, this is what kind of sparked what I wanted to talk about today, and seeing this person here in the home of Tumblr saying that Australia just had its worst mass shooting in nearly 30 years, referencing the Port Arthur shooting, which happened in, I think, like the 80s or something, and that's when we had our gun reform laws happen. I believe in the Port Arthur shooting there was 30 people who died, but it does really put into perspective, doesn't it, that like it's been 30 years since we've had like such a big mass shooting, and 16 people have died so far. So I mean, we don't need to do a pissing contest and say which one was the worst one. They're both fucking terrible, but 30 years, that's crazy. I guess in like my entire lifetime. Wait, 30 years? Wait a second. I don't know if they're right about that. 30 years? Has it been more? Because like I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm almost 30. There's no way. Okay, well, I don't know. Listen, I don't know much about the Port Arthur shooting. I'll be, you know, honest about that. I really don't know much about it. I guess like, okay, 30 years, give or take, whatever. So, tens of people were shot at the Hanukkah celebration on Bondi Beach yesterday in what is suspected to be an act of anti-Semitic terrorism, and 16 people are currently confirmed dead. Ahmed al-Ahmed was a bystander and took it upon himself to disarm one of the gunmen, sustaining multiple gunshot wounds in the process. He is currently awaiting surgery in Sydney. Yeah, so if you don't know, Bondi is a very famous place in New South Wales, Sydney. Yeah, it's just like a, I don't know, it's like, who hasn't heard of like, I don't know, Bondi Vet or Bondi Rescue? Yeah. Actually, I think I was going to go to Bondi when I went to Sydney, I think like a year or two ago, but it's just crazy over there, you know, there's too many people, I'd say. But yeah, okay, so it happened in Bondi. Okay, let's see what else. Yeah, Ahmed, some people criticize the way that he handled the situation, which I guess we can get into that now, I suppose. Yeah, people were saying that, there was this really particularly, like, gross thing where someone was like, oh, what ended up happening is Ahmed, he grabbed the gun from one of the shooters, I don't know which one, and he pointed it at the shooter, but he didn't shoot them. And they said, oh, you know, just because he didn't want to kill one of his own, that shooter ended up going off to kill more people or something, which I don't think is factually correct. We'll get into the details of what happened with Ahmed and the shooter. But the fact that people are just so flippantly saying this shit, and it's like, again, we don't need to spread misinformation about what happened, or like, you know, if you're speculating, you need to tell people that you're speculating, because it's supremely fucked up to say that Ahmed, who is, you know, a victim in this, that he didn't do the right thing in this situation because he didn't want to shoot another human being. Like, the problem is that people are such like keyboard fucking warriors that they're like, oh, dude, if I was there, I would have fucking roundhouse kicked him, you know, Chuck Norris style, like I would have been fucking sick. And like, people think like they know how they would react in this situation, and it's like, you're a pussy, you would not have done anything. And it's just like, no one wants to admit that to themselves. But the majority of people who are like criticizing Ahmed are like, you wouldn't do shit, bro. Like, what are you talking about? It's insane. But I mean, this is just like a thing that's been, you know, said, and people read these comments and they go, oh my god, you know, Ahmed, he's not really a hero, he's actually like a bad, he's like he didn't do the right thing, he's not a hero, or yada yada yada. I mean, you can't seriously expect some random guy who on like a random day went to the beach to get a coffee and then is suddenly having to fend off like a fucking a shooter in Australia, and you're like, yeah, he should have shot him. I mean, yeah. Anyway, people are keyboard warriors. So this person is saying, do not let Israel fool you into believing this was an attack on it. Do not let Israel fool you into believing this terrorist attack is the fault of the Palestinian people or their allies. This was an anti-Semitic attack committed by anti-Semitic people, and it should not be ignored, nor should it be used as a cover to defend Israel. I kind of feel like that goes without saying. Are people actually using this as a way to be like, Israel needs to go harder on the Palestinian people? It's like, that's fucking stupid. So it kind of starts here, where for me, people are making this about Israel. People are like, Israel's going to take this and use it as like a weapon to justify what they've been doing to the Palestinian people or something. I don't fucking know, man. I think that at this point, anyone who's like listening to Netanyahu, it's like, you hear him talking, it's like, girl, are you still talking? Shut up. You're so annoying. Anyway, I'm being a little bit silly, but listen, I don't want to get too depressed about this. So, I guess sometimes I'm a little bit jokey about things, but you know where my heart lies, and I feel, I just wish that like this didn't happen at all. I wish this didn't happen at all. And so close to Christmas too. I mean, it's like so many people have died, and it's like, for what? What is it all for? It's not for anything. It's madness. So then here we had people were spreading this misinformation that the Naveed Akram, the son, it was a father and son shooter duo, which is I feel like that's like an insane detail to me. I don't know why that keeps sticking out to me. I was saying it yesterday, that detail of them being father and son, it was just, I don't know. So there's this screenshot going around of a Facebook profile of a guy named David Cohen. Now, if you don't know, David Cohen is kind of like a very common Jewish name, I guess. They're very common names. I mean, it's like anyone. Like, I feel like the name, like, Alex is a very common name. I think, yeah, David Cohen is like a very common name for like Jewish people, I think, especially Cohen, I think. And so this whole thing of like Naveed Akram's real name is David Cohen ? Which this is just yeah, and people saying that his real name's David Cohen and he's an IDF soldier, because people are trying to make it into this thing where the IDF or Israel or whatever made this attack happen. They sacrificed their own people because they need to have a tragic event happen to bring people more onto their side. Listen, I think all states of government, they do propaganda in service of, you know, protecting their government, protecting their, you know, country, I guess. And Israel's no different. Israel definitely does do, you know, they try, like, for God's sake, there was this recent, like, reality TV show with Trisha Paytas in Israel, allegedly. Not allegedly, they blurred her out in the reality show, and they're, like, talking about how much they love Israel and how good Israel is, and, you know, Trisha Paytas has been paid by Visit Israel to celebrate, like, Israel as a country and be like, guys, you have to go to Israel. Oh my god, I love Israel. Which never makes sense to me, like, this like, glazing of a particular, like, country. I feel like that's always not good. Like, I would never be like, guys, Australia's, like, the best place ever. Come visit Australia, we're awesome. I don't know, I'd never be like that even about my own country. It's so odd. It's just so weird. So yeah, people are trying to make this into like a yeah, like, this is probably gonna get me called anti-Semitic. I'm just recognizing the patterns. Again, it's this really crazy conspiracy, and like, conspiracies have followed the Jewish people around forever. And we'll get into that later. And again, like, this doesn't make, I don't know, like, what movement these people are trying to make, or, like, if they're trying to even protect Palestinians, but spreading misinformation and just, like, partaking in anti-Semitic stereotypes is not gonna help the Palestinian people. I'm sorry, it just won't. And so that's why I really don't understand why people want to push this so much, because it really does just, like, if anything, it does the opposite. It tarnishes how people view the Palestinian movement. And I think that the problem with, like, the Palestinian movement that I see, that I really hate, is that it really does seem to have been co-opted by white supremacist type people. I think people who have good intentions, by the way, people who have good intentions are getting sucked into, like, this really weird extremist point of view against Israeli people, and they defend it by, or like, even just Jewish people, not just Israeli, but Jewish people as well, and they defend it by going like, well, it's a morally good thing to do because of what Israel's done to Palestine, so we're gonna treat all Jewish and Israeli people like they're, you know, termites, right? That's another thing. Yeah, people say, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-termite or something. It's like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, we're gonna look at a bigger picture of that screenshot in a second. So, what you need to know about the Bondi terror attack. This is from the Sydney Morning Herald. So they're saying 15 people were killed. It's 16 now, so this is clearly old. 26 people remain in a hospital, 12 of them in critical condition. Sajid Akram and his son Naveed Akram opened fire at a Hanukkah event on Sunday evening. Wait, Sunday evening? Okay. wow, I guess it was Sunday when I heard about it. I didn't, wow, oh my god. I think the timeline of this is just so insane. Oh, what a tragedy. Yeah, and then they said there was a girl, 10-year-old Matilda, the youngest victim of the terror attack. They had a Holocaust survivor, Alex Kleitman, businessman, Reuven Morrison, okay, former police officer, Peter Meager, grandfather, Tibor Weitzen, dedicated volunteer, Marika Pagani. Her age is 82, I think, and they're the ones among the dead. I don't know, why don't we just, like, list all the dead people? Why do we have to list, like, are they just listing, like, the most prominent dead people or something? I don't know, man. Yeah, so 2 police officers sustained gunshot wounds and remain in the hospital, and one has been identified as Constable Scott Dyson. The other is a probationary constable, okay? So, Naveed, the son, is 24 years old. He suffered critical injuries and is under police guard in hospital. He is expected to, well, at least he's gonna serve, hopefully, his entire fucking life in jail. Sajid Akram, 50, was shot by police and he died at the scene. So the father is dead, the son is alive, and the mother... I don't know if we've heard anything from the mother. I did see a passing thing where the mother said that she was like, oh, my son was a great son, like, anyone would want to have him. Again, that was something I saw in passing, and given the misinformation we've been seeing, I don't know if that's real. It might not be. She has not been named. Yeah. I have seen news reports say that apparently Naveed did call his mum before the shooting, and he said something about, like, oh, I'm just going to the beach for a swim and to get a bite to eat or something. So respectfully, I don't think... Oh yeah, I think part of the post that I saw about his mum saying he was the best son, she said something about him just never going outside really and just being really isolated all the time. Again, I don't know if that was real. So Sajid, the dad, legally owned 6 firearms and belonged to a recreational gun club. And now the police are investigating a trip that the father and son took to the Philippines in November. I don't know, like, what... I don't know what, like, importance that has, but they're looking into it, I guess. And then Naveed, the son, previously came to the ACO's attention to 2019. Now, the ACO is like the, what are they? The Australian Security Intelligence Organisation. So it's kind of like the NSA for Australia, I think. Yeah, the Domestic Intelligence and National Security Agency of the Australian Government, responsible for protecting Australia from espionage, sabotage, foreign interference, politically motivated violence, terrorism, and attacks on the national defence system. So that's the ACO, just so you're aware. And we'll get more into, like, the ACO thing and Naveed. So the National Cabinet has pledged to eradicate anti-Semitism, hate, violence, and terrorism. Don't know how you're going to do that. It's still going to be a thing. So, I don't know how you're going to eradicate it, but you can do your darndest best efforts to try, I guess. So the cabinet's agreed to take strong, decisive, and focused action on gun law reform. So again, we are going to be... The government may be convening before Christmas to implement some stronger laws around guns and gun control, which is very... it's good. I think, like, if there's anything good to come out of this, it will be stronger gun control. And it is an interesting point. There was a point that I think Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, made, talking about how perhaps gun licenses shouldn't be, provided in perpetuity. Like, you can at any point in time become, like, a radicalized person, right? So, yeah, I think that, that's an interesting thing. So I guess they're going to be revisiting some stuff with that. So, we'll see what happens, I guess. And then we had, Port Arthur era National Firearms Agreement to be renegotiated after Bondi Beach Massacre. Sajid Akram was found fit and proper to hold an A-B category gun license 10 years ago before he and his son, took his firearms to a footbridge at Bondi Beach to commit an alleged act of anti-Semitic terror against beachgoers, celebrating the first day of Hanukkah on Sunday. Yeah, so Anthony Albanese said, people's circumstances can change, people can be radicalized over a period of time, licenses should not be in perpetuity, and checks, of course, making sure that those checks and balances are in place as well. Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like, you can't really tell when it's going to happen, who it's going to happen to, but perhaps if there are more frequent audits or something of your license, or, having to renew it and stuff, like, I think that would make more sense. I don't know much about the gun licensing stuff here, because I don't need a gun. I don't know. Most people here don't need guns, I guess. So the father, Sajid, who arrived in Australia in 1998 on a student visa, yep, he died at the scene, we went through that. At least 40 people were injured in the attack in total. Wow. Oh my god. The New South Wales Police Commissioner is saying that it was a deliberate attack on the Jewish community. Naveed was known to police through his associations with individuals connected to extremist groups, but at the time in 2019, I guess there was no indication that there was like an attack planned, or I guess because they were investigating him for 6 months in 2019, and it is I believe because Naveed was associates, or he was he had briefly talked to someone who is in jail currently for planning an attack, let's just say. So I think Naveed at a time was a person of interest just due to connections, but I guess they never found any evidence that Naveed was going to do something. Yeah, and just another thing is that the father's gun license allowed him to own certain shotguns and centerfire rifles in his Bondi rig home, and police said he was a member of a gun club. Again, some misinformation that I heard, or maybe speculation it was, people were saying that either Naveed or his dad was a tourist on a tourist visa, and they got a gun license, and again, I had heard that and I was like, holy shit, how is a tourist allowed a gun, oh my god. Again, that's not... I guess I don't say what his current visa-ship is like, but I'm assuming since 1998 the father went on to become a citizen of Australia. I assume he's no longer a student visa. Let's just say that. Although maybe, I don't know. No, I'm being silly about that. So despite the investigation to the son's associations lasting 6 whole months, the father's gun license was not cancelled. Now, you could say that maybe the ACO could have done more to try and prevent something. I think it's kind of difficult, because just because you might have ties, or you might be friends with someone who's became radicalized or something, I suppose to assume that all their connections, everyone who's ever associated with them might do that. I guess that the government probably reckons that that'd be a little bit too extreme, maybe. I don't know, that's what I'm speculating, because if they couldn't find any evidence that Naveed was going to do something, then it's what are you going to do? Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. There are more than 4 million guns owned by civilians across Australia, up 25% from 3.2 million guns in the lead up to the Port Arthur massacre and the gun reform. New South Wales is home to the most licensed guns in the country with 1.1 million registered firearms. Of the registered guns in New South Wales, 34% are to people living in major metropolitan cities of Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong. There are more than 260,000 illicit firearms in circulation, according to the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission. The average firearms license holder owns more than 4 guns, and 2 individuals in inner Sydney own 386 and 304 firearms, respectively. What the fuck? According to the Australia Institute's Gun Control in Australia, a report released in January, owning that many guns is legal under firearm law except in Western Australia. Yeah, so I think that in some, it's probably going to be different state by state, but it sounds to me like when it comes to Sydney, you can have, New South Wales. When it comes to New South Wales, I believe, you can just have as many guns as you can, as long as you can stow them away, or like store them in their cases, or not cases, but you need to have weapons that are stored in as like a safe place that's hard to say, like a gun locker, like you can't just have them sitting like willy-nilly, right? Yeah. Okay, and I believe also is that people who are like gun license holders, they regularly have like random inspections from police, I guess you could say random audits of how they're storing their guns, if their guns are in storage, if they're being responsible and shit like that. So anyway, yeah, that's about the guns and shit. Which is interesting. I didn't know some of that. So this is about Ahmed Ahmed, the hero who tackled and disarmed one of the shooters. So he was shot a few times, and I think he's gonna be okay. Yeah, I think he's gonna be okay, but in this article they kind of talked about him a bit and said some nice things, I guess. Ahmed is a Muslim who arrived in Australia in 2006 from Syria. The 44-year-old tobacco shop owner is a father of 2 daughters, aged 5 and 6. Wow, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so there's all people talking about how he's like a great person. Yeah, and then there's this issue that Ahmed was having issues with. Ahmed's elderly parents were in Australia and could not return to Syria because of the situation there. I believe there's like a war. There's like a lot of shit happening over in Syria. Syria hasn't been good in a minute. I remember hearing a bunch about Syria when I was in like a senior in high school and stuff, so my teachers warned us when we were like primary school that like as more and more like wars and like infighting happens across the world in different places, immigration is only just going to get more and more of like a thing. Or I think I said asylum. Yeah, they said asylum and stuff. Asylum and asylum seeking is going to become more and more of like a thing that's happening. And yeah, because there's going to be more and more displaced people, and the same's going to happen with like global warming too. Like the more certain areas become just inhabitable, the more we're going to have people seeking asylum to places where the earth is at least habitable, I guess. It's going to continue to be an issue. So yeah, I think Ahmed was hoping that maybe the government would give his parents citizenship for his service to the community, saving people by disarming the guy. Which, I don't know, I think... Okay, yeah, I think that, yeah, bro risked his life, and he probably did save people for it. So then they started talking about, some issues that Ahmed had. He had some charges about, having stolen goods, but then in the end the charges were dropped by the police. New South Wales police had earlier charged him with possession of goods suspected of being stolen, which he denied, and he appealed the citizenship refusal, but then the tribunal dismissed his application, on a basis that he had no reasonable chance of success. I mean, yeah. The court records show the charges relating to possession of suspected stolen goods were later dropped in August of 2019. He was eventually granted citizenship in 2022, so congratulations, Ahmed. However, in 2022, apparently he pleaded guilty to a number of minor tobacco offenses. Like, okay. Okay, whatever. Apparently, yeah, he'd also been displaying ice pipes in a shop or something. Okay, but yeah, they're like talking about all this stuff that, like, I don't know, his past, I guess. So yeah, what ended up happening is that Ahmed and this Al-Khanj guy, they wanted to get a coffee, so they went down to the beach, and then it just happened, and they were behind the cars, and they could see that the people who were shooting were very close. I mean, you could probably hear it too. Be like, that's fucking close. Very insanely scary stuff. So, the footage from the scene at Bondi Beach shows one of the gunmen dressed in a black shirt and white pants, holding a black bag, standing beside two bins next to Campbell Parade car park as he fires into the crowd gathered on the lawn nearby. So then Ahmed moved towards the gunman through the car park, tackled him and disarmed him, which I know you've probably seen by now. And the shooter backed away and walked towards the car park overpass where the other shooter was. Yeah. So then Ahmed placed the rifle against the tree and backed away, and another bystander can be seen chasing the gunman, throwing something at him as he walks towards the bridge. Then other footage showed that during the scene, the gunman then rejoined the other one, so it could have been like the son rejoining the father at the bridge, and yeah, and then Ahmed has entered the line of fire at that time, I believe, and then that's when he was shot twice. So I guess the other guy who had the gun was when he shot him. Which would make sense that it'd be maybe the father who was the one who shot him, because the police would definitely shoot a person who has a gun. They're just going to. So it would make sense that it was the dad who shot Ahmed, maybe. That's my speculation. That's my speculation. Yeah. Alright, so that's that. And we talked about the licenses in perpetuity. Was there anything else here? Oh, Israeli media outlets, including the Jerusalem Post, reported that Israeli authorities were investigating whether state actors, chiefly Iran, were involved in the mass shooting attack. Okay. You wanna know what my opinion is? My opinion is it's just these people who just got radicalized. I mean, we see it all the time with shootings, is that they have a history, like a paper trail on their accounts online of them being in these weird fringe inner circles, being in these message boards where their ideas, their ideologies are reinforced, and they're with like-minded people, because the internet, unfortunately, allows like-minded people to come together and spread their stupid ideas like flat earth, you know? People out here thinking that the earth is flat, and they're joining groups where other people believe the same thing. Obviously it's not comparable to actually killing people. At least flat earthers, for the most part, are pretty, I don't know, not dangerous people, just perhaps very stupid. So then we had this Isaac El Matari, who was jailed for 7 years for preparing terrorist attacks in Australia, which happened in 2021. And yeah, I believe that this is the guy that had ties to Naveed. I don't remember where I saw that now, though, but now I'm kind of like, wait, where did I see that? Editor Kate here. I just wanted to say, when it comes to the tie between Isaac El Matari and Naveed, I was not lying. I didn't make that up, actually. Let me get it up for you, because that didn't just come out of thin air, okay? So, according to the Sydney Morning Herald, the ABC reported on Monday that Asio took an interest in Naveed Akram. That initial interest, that investigation that went for 6 months, was because of his connections to the Islamic State terrorist Isaac El Matari, who is serving 7 years in jail for playing in Islamic State insurgency as the self-declared Australian commander of the terrorist group. Okay, so apparently Naveed had some kind of connection to him. I think he was just like an acquaintance, from what I can remember. But yeah, this is so it didn't come out of this masthead understands that authorities concluded at the time that Naveed Akram was only an acquaintance of El Matari rather than a close associate. Neither did they find evidence that he was radicalized, explaining why he was not monitored in the years since. So I just thought I would put that in there, just in case, just because, yeah. Yeah, so the assessment of the ASIO was with respect to Isaac's associations, rather than, at that point, there being a personal motivation from Naveed. I believe. That's my interpretation of that. But anyway, I just thought I'd put that in there. So, yes, I'm not Delulu, okay? For the most part, I'm pretty not Delulu. Alright? Okay, back to it. Wow, I'm great at this, aren't I? So at one point, El Matari purchased a tactical vest and binoculars from a hunting shop as he prepared to travel to Afghanistan. So he had talked a lot about, doing something, but the judge found that for the most part he was mostly all talk and not really action. But going to a shop to buy like a tactical vest and binoculars, it's like it's starting to get to that point where it is like, okay, what are you doing? Yeah, so this guy lamented to one associate the difficulty of gaining supporters in Australia, and he discussed vague plans for a terrorist attack in the country, the New South Wales Supreme Court heard. Yeah, so he talked about like knowing which targets to make and who to target for like fear or like political message. That's what he'd been heard saying from his Sydney apartment. Yeah. So he received a maximum term of 7 years. He also admitted he was knowingly a member of IS during the majority of 2019. El Matari covered his face with his hands and then smiled on a video link from prison after learning his fate. Clearly someone who is very not well. Yeah. The vendor had grandiose ideas of undertaking some enterprise to establish IS in Australia, with the equally grandiose idea that he would be the head of it, the judge said in sentencing. Justice Garling found El Matari had been exposed to radical beliefs by peers from about the age of 15. Again, it's this thing where it's like when you're young, especially that young, your mind is so like primed, or not even primed, it's like you're so vulnerable to so many different things. And I think, yeah, we see a lot of this issue with like young people. I guess that's why sometimes when I think about like the father and son thing, I think like, okay, why was surely like a 50-year-old man would, I don't know, would maybe, you'd hope that maybe with age people get smarter, but they don't. It's like, I just don't really understand how you could plan something with someone else, because usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, but usually these these mass shootings and stuff happen in like an isolated manner, like it's one person instead of like multiple people, usually, right? Because who the hell is going to admit to someone else like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing or something, you know? I guess it just doesn't go down that way. I don't know. I probably couldn't begin to understand how that even goes about. But yeah, the judge found the offending was the result of social isolation, unmanaged mental health, susceptibility to influence, unhelpful peer associations, radicalized belief, and a romanticized perception of living under Sharia law. Yeah. Anyway, I don't remember why I thought this was connected to the guy. Maybe it's later on in the doc. I don't remember. So then we had the Canberra Times talking about misinformation, false identities being spread online after the Bondi shooting. Unfortunately, this is a pay to read type of thing, and you know me, I only read for free. I don't read for payment, so yeah. So I guess we'll never know what Lucinda was talking about here, Lucinda and Ray, but I'll talk about what I think about it. So then we have the Hindustan Times, which again talked about the Naveed Akram, Bondi Beach shooter's real name is David Cohen, ? Bizarre IDF links surface. However, we have to say, social post claimed suspect Naveed Akram, one of the Bondi shooters, was an ex-IDF soldier, David Cohen. A Facebook profile of Cohen is viral. And I have to say, I could not find the profile myself. I have no idea. I couldn't find it myself. It was, couldn't see it. Again, the screenshot's pretty sus, and we'll go through that in a few minutes. Let's see. Okay, now they're saying more than 42 people were injured. 42, it's a lot. So amid the attack, a number of false, unverified claims about the suspects and their links to different organizations are being spread. Because everyone has their own little agenda and everyone wants to have someone else take credit for it, or for it to be about some bigger thing. Ugh. Yeah, little information is available on the public domain about the two. Yep. A CBS News report stated that they were of Pakistani origin, though that remains unconfirmed. Meanwhile, authorities in Australia confirmed that the son was on the radar of the ASIO. We talked about that. Alleged ties to an Islamic State. Link cell, okay. I think that's why I made the connection with, what's his face? Can I get it back? Isaac Al Matari. Okay. So yeah, little is known about them. Some bizarre posts talking about them. Yeah. So here we have the viral screenshot. Yeah, which I thought was interesting. So now we get to see like an actual close-up of the screenshot, which, listen, if alarm bells aren't going off for you looking at that, I don't know. This is like the most insane thing, to the point where it feels like this is like a meme. I'm not even kidding you, and I'll explain why. So at first we have Facebook banner. Do I need to say more? David Cohen, proud Jew, family, faith, community. And then of course you got like the emojis for like, you know, Star of David and the Israel flag. It's like, of course we have a picture of him with his yarmulke on, okay? And this person has pointed out some things that they thought were saucy. Earnsarge. I don't know what Earnsarge means. Is Earnsarge a word in a language or something? I don't know. That's kind of weird, but okay. So we got home, about, timeline, Theopis, more. This is kind of weird. What is Theopis? Theopis. And we have about. He lives in Tel Aviv, Israel, which is like, okay. And then we have they didn't even circle this. Add a new friends. That's weird. Add a new friends. I didn't know Facebook, I don't know, did that. That's so weird. Now we have friends. 27 friends. Why does it have friends bracket 1? It's kind of weird. And then his friends, his first 3 friends showing up is Jewish Bronnen, which, I don't know, that text is kind of weird too. But then we have Jewish Married Land. And Michael right, no, not even Michael, Reichel. It's like, okay, location Tel Aviv, Israel, again, it's like, okay. I don't really know why they circled those two. And then we have his posts, which is like, in my opinion, this is like the kicker. This looks like AI. This looks like heavily AI. But the problem is it's such low quality that it makes you think like, it's low quality. It's not like that crispness, you know? It's, like I think people genuinely think like, this is real, bro. His post, Mazel Tov, what a joyous occasion. Muzzle at bar mitzvah. And then they have article.com. Shabbat traditions, Shabbat traditions, Loet. I don't know why they circled that again. Maybe it's because of the M dash. Or maybe the way that it's structured. I'm not really sure. And then his other post is Shabbat Shalom to everyone. I'm sorry, but like it's almost like a Jewish caricature of some sort. It's like it's very weird. So again, this is, if anyone is out here, if anyone you know is out here being like, he's a Jewish IDF soldier, you're stupid. You're fucking stupid. And you got this person here being like, Israel is still causing a genocide in Palestine since 1947, shut the fuck up. And it's like, well, if you care about your movement, you want people to believe in like the authenticity, you want people to feel like you shouldn't have to lie about things to make your movement, I don't know, what's like a confirmed or like valid. Validity of your movement doesn't come from lying about extremists like this. You know, it's like that. This is why I think people have issues with the current state of the Palestinian movement, because you see stuff like this as like very blatant fucking lying, misinformation, to try and make it look like this is like some deep state, like Israeli, like, you know, operation to sacrifice their people for a greater good. And then you have people like this who are like, oh well, who cares if people are lying about it? Well, you should care. If you care about your, you know, your mission or whatever, you should care about people lying. Because if people who are supporting Palestine are supporting this, then it just makes people call into question your movement and who you are. Because this is very clearly not real. I don't know what else to say. It's obviously not fucking real. But yeah, this is the post, apparently. I guess this must be a better screenshot. Even in this one, it still has the issue. Theopis. Add a new friends. What is add a new friends? I don't know, man. And it's just like, of course this come from Twitter. But yeah, it is what it is. So then we had in Ireland, apparently in the wake of what happened in Sydney, they're going to be increasing, I guess, like security when it comes to the events for events associated with the Irish Jewish community. So worldwide, people are starting to make changes to further protect the, you know, Jewish communities. And they said that no community should have to live in fear that ordinary places of life and leisure can become scenes of terror, and I think that's true. I think that's true. I don't think that Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah in Sydney should be scared for their lives or scared to practice, you know, like their religion and stuff because of what Netanyahu is doing. You know, like I think that violence towards people who have nothing to do with it. It's like this assumption that anyone who's celebrating their religion, like Judaism. Celebrating Judaism, Hanukkah, there's this assumption that all of them are, like, in on what's happening with Israel and Palestine or something. Like, murdering these people is not going to change what's happening over there. It's just not. And this is what I was saying as well with, Luigi and killing that CEO, guy. What has happened since that happened? Killing people doesn't have any... It doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't have any actual, like, positive manifestations in the world. Like, I think people thought that, like, oh, someone killed, like, a CEO, and for, like, 5 minutes the CEOs were, like, kind of scared, and then it's like, well, it didn't do anything. And it's the same thing with, like, Charlie Kirk. What happened to Charlie Kirk? What has it led to? It hasn't led to anything. If anything, it just... Actually, you know what it has led to? What I've noticed is that, the people on that side of the fence are all kind of infighting now. Now there's all these conspiracies about, like, who had the most to gain around Charlie Kirk dying. So, you know what? I think it resulted in something, but... I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so that was just something interesting about, like, what's happening with, Ireland? The Irish Times. Interesting, I think. Yeah, and then we had the BNO News Live, which I don't know who this is. I don't know who that is, but they're saying, breaking, ISIS flag found in a car of Sydney gunman, Australian ABC. Apparently. Yeah. So then people are saying that, like, because of that, it's like, it's so predictable. Because they're like, it's like, oh, of course it's gonna be all about, like, what do you call it? Of course it's gonna be all about, like, oh, they're ISIS, yada yada, case closed, bro. I don't know. Yeah. So what else did they say? Oh, I'm gonna have to blur that. That's awesome. Alright, we're not looking at that. Yep, that was a picture that I definitely cannot fucking show. Awesome. Definitely can't show that. So then people are talking about, like, manufacturing consent and stuff, and how, like, when things like this happen, people start going like, well, shit, maybe Israel does have a right to defend itself, because now all of a sudden people are just harming Jewish people everywhere. You know, there's, like, a whole thing about manufacturing consent. Maybe later on I'll have a deeper look into the whole manufactured consent thing, but I hear this thrown around a lot, particularly lately, especially in the perspective of, like, Israel and Palestine. The whole manufactured consent thing, where it's like, I believe it's like something you wouldn't normally accept. You become like a willing acceptor of it because of stuff that you've seen. I don't know. It's making you go like, oh, maybe there is a reason for this, right? 5 filters of editorial bias: size, ownership, and profit orientation. The dominant mass media are large profit-based operations, and therefore they must cater to the financial interests of the owners, such as corporations and controlling investors. The size of a media company is a consequence of the investment capital required for the mass communications technology required to reach a mass audience of viewers, listeners, and readers. Advertising license to do business. Advertisers have acquired a de facto licensing authority. Media outlets are not commercially viable without the support of advertisers. News media must therefore cater to the political prejudices and economic desires of their advertisers. Ooh, okay. This has weakened the working class press, for example, and also helps explain the attrition in the number of newspapers. That's interesting. Anti-communism. This filter concerns the spectre of a common enemy which can be used to marginalize dissent. This ideology helps mobilize the populace against an enemy, and because the concept is fuzzy, it can be used against anybody advocating policies that threaten dominant interests. Anti-communism was included as a filter in the original 1988 edition of the book, but Chomsky argues that since the end of the Cold War, anti-communism was replaced with the war on terror as the major social control mechanism. Yes, right, the war on terror. Yeah. Okay. The propaganda model describes the pillars of society, the public domain, business firms, media organizations, governments, etc., as first and foremost profit seekers. To fully consider the effects of the propaganda model, a tiered diagram can be drawn. Due to the impressionable and exploitative nature of major media organizations, including broadcast media, print media, and 21st century social media, media organizations are placed at the bottom. Higher up the model, it pans to the larger organizations that are financially capable of controlling advertising licenses, lawsuits, or selling environments. The first level displays the public domain in which prominent ideologies within the masses can influence the intentions of mass media. The second level, pertaining to the business firms, accounts for media's source of information, as business firms are wealthy enough to supply information to media organizations while maintaining control over where advertisers can sell their advertisements and stories. The final layer, the governments of the major global powers are the wealthiest subgroup of the pillars of society, having the most financial wealth and organizational power. Media organizations are most dependent on government structures for financial stability and political direction. Okay, well, there's probably more to learn about that some other time, but yeah, people talk about this manufacturing consent stuff, and sounds interesting. Alright, so then I was looking at this thing, which was the Rockefeller Institute of Government. Okay, I was looking at shootings. Of course, these are American statistics, but interesting to look at nonetheless. So, the Regional Gun Violence Research's flagship policy brief on the topic provides important insights in mass public shootings from 1966 to the present. Holy shit. Mass shootings have been steadily increasing in frequency since, 1966. Wow. 2010? 2015? Wow, things were really massive between 2015 and 2020. Right? Holy shit. Alright, so the majority of mass public shootings occurred at workplaces and schools. And places of worship was 22. I don't know what that number represents, I'll be honest. Fuck. Government military was also 22. Okay. Mass shootings are more likely to occur on weekdays as compared to weekends. Yeah, we gotta get rid of Mondays. I tell ya, we have to get rid of Mondays. I'm all for a 4-day work week. I'm saying it. I'm for it. I like it. I mean, it's no... Oh, well, actually, Thursday is 92, so... Jesus. We just can't get over that hump day, can we? Man, this is so fucked up. The timing of mass shootings is normally distributed throughout the day, reaching peak in late morning. Whoa. It's important to note that the timing of mass shootings is more complex than just analysing the day and time. Instead, the convergence of these measures, day times time, or day X time, mirrors the routine patterns of the locations in which they occur. Right, school shootings, for example, most likely to occur at times that correspond to arrival, lunch, and dismissal. Shootings at places of worship occur most frequently on Sunday mornings, but times reflect when people are typically congregated within these locations as large groups within more open spaces. Right. So mass shootings are most commonly perpetrated with handguns. Okay. Most mass shootings involve a single weapon. 67% single weapon, 32% multiple weapons. And here we go. Mass shootings perpetrators are typically males. 94% solo male. We got 3%, almost 4% solo female. 1% male-female pair, and 0.6% 2+ males. So, again, this is all like American statistics, but it really is like interesting that we had 2 males, multiple guns, and then a Sunday evening. So it's pretty much no doubt about it that this was a very intentional act against the people celebrating Hanukkah, the Jewish people. And like I said at the beginning of this podcast, it's been going for almost an hour and 20 minutes. Like I said before, we've been seeing this rise in anti-Semitism. We've been seeing a rise in just like this weird rhetoric, especially online, particularly online, I guess I should say, because most people in real life wouldn't say the stuff that you've been reading online. I think most people would not say that shit. Ugh. The average age of mass shooters is 34.4 years. Ugh. Alright, so we're going to be finishing up here soon. So, I was looking at other shootings because I wanted to look at, I guess, like what other ones what other ones have been occurring and who has it been occurring to. Now this one, a violent online community radicalized a school shooter and 6 others. A group that glorifies school shooters and spreads gore content influenced the abundant life school shooter and continues to harm vulnerable children. This was published December 12th. Wait, what the fuck? What's today? It's the 16th. It's like 4 days ago. So as a Madison school shooter, Natalie Samantha Rupnow, is being idolized and copied in the same violent online community that helped radicalize her, a group that has ties to 6 other recent K-12 school shootings, or school shooters. Rupnow opened fire at Abundant Life Christian School on December 16th, 2024. Okay, for a second I was like, wait, December 16th? That's crazy. Yeah, so this is 2024, and she killed teacher Erin Michelle West and student Ruby Patricia Vergara, and she wounded 6 others before she killed herself. I think I kind of remember this. I think this was kind of like a big thing because it was like a female that did it or something. Like, okay. But it is also crazy that it's like, I don't know, does everyone know about this? Have people heard about this? Researchers soon found that Rupnow had immersed herself in a dark social media world that idolizes mass shooters, spreads gore, and promotes white supremacist content. They call themselves the Loose Network. Wait, they call the Loose Network the True Crime Community, or TCC. Sorry, that was a big blunder on my part. Yeah, so they're called the True Crime Community, TCC, which is interesting to me because I was like, wait a second, the true crime community, like that's people who like watch like Stephanie Sue like talk about like, I don't know, the Diddy case or something like that. That to me is the true crime community. What do you mean there's a true crime community that's spreading white supremacy? Is that something else? It must be something else entirely. Rupnow's digital extremism has had far-reaching consequences, and to the point where her online interactions prompted law enforcement action against 2 young men in Florida and California, and since Rupnow's death, the online persona built around her became a warped, idealized character within the TCC. This persona has served as a source of inspiration for 3 school shooters in Tennessee, Minnesota, and Colorado, as well as a teen who bombed his high school's mosque in Indonesia. So, again, like this isn't just happening to like Jewish people. You know, we had, I think that the shooting happening at Bondi to like Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah is devastating, and when you think of it in tandem with how much anti-Semitism has grown since the October, what was it called? October 7th, 2023, I believe. I can't believe it's been that long already. But, I mean, like I was saying, in tandem with the amount of anti-Semitism that we see casually just, like, splayed out online now, I think that's what makes the shooting at Bondi that much more, like, scary as a targeted attack. But I do want to say that these targeted attacks on, like, religious groups, I mean, it does happen to a lot of different groups, and I think that, I mean, maybe people might interpret me saying that as, like, I'm diminishing what happened at Bondi, and I'm not trying to, but I think my perspective comes from that these people are unwell, these people are very sick in the head. I mean, you have to be if you're going to go around shooting people, obviously, but I don't believe that what happened at Bondi was like a IDF conspiracy, like a Jewish conspiracy to garner sympathy for, like, Israel. I believe Netanyahu will take this as like a political, like, moment. Even Netanyahu was criticizing our prime minister for not taking a severe enough, like, way of, like, eradicating, like, anti-Semitism, or I don't remember what was said exactly in the article, but people say that Anthony Albanese is, like, sucking Netanyahu's, like, dick or whatever, but, like, even Netanyahu is still not happy with what Anthony Albanese is, like, doing in response, and it's just like, okay, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. So this was Madison, Nashville school shooters appear to have crossed paths in online extremist communities. A month after a student opened fire at Abundant Life's Christian school in Madison, another killed a classmate at Antioch High School in Nashville. Both were active in an internet subculture that glorifies mass shooters and encourages young people to commit attacks themselves. This was posted January 28th, 2025, Wisconsin. Moments before 15-year-old Natalie Rupno, 15 years old. Again, isn't that interesting? They were 15 years old. And, well, Isaac also was 15 years old when he started getting radicalized, you know? Jesus. Yeah, so moments before Natalie opened fire inside the Madison, Wisconsin school, killing 2 people and herself, a social media account believed to be hers posted a photograph on X showing someone sitting in a bathroom stall and flashing a hand gesture that has become a symbol for white supremacy. What the fuck? Extremism researchers now believe that second account belonged to 17-year-old Solomon Henderson, who police say walked into his high school cafeteria and fired 10 shots, killing one classmate and then himself. That happened January 22nd, 2025. Didn't hear about that. While there isn't any evidence that Rupnow and Henderson plotted their attacks together, extremism researchers who have tracked their social media activity told Wisconsin Watch and ProPublica that the 2 teenagers were active in the same online networks that glorify mass shooters, even crossing paths. Across various social media platforms, the networks trade hateful memes alongside terrorist literature, exchange tips on how to effectively commit attacks, and encourage one another to carry out their own. The researchers' analysis found only a few instances in which Rupnow and Henderson appeared to interact directly, but in the hours, days, and weeks that followed the Madison shooting, where Rupnow, did the shooting and killed herself, Henderson appears to have become fixated on Rupnow. He boasted on X that Rupnow and him were mutuals, a common internet term for following each other, right? And shared another post that said, "I used to be mutuals with someone who is now a real school shooter," smiley face. Dude, that's such a cringe emote. Ugh. Like, see, like, these people glorify it, they idolize it. You know, that's not the hallmarks of someone who's mentally well. I don't even know why I had to say that. I mean, no one's saying that these people are mentally well, right? I guess I'm just trying to just drive that home. These people are not okay. And I hate to say it, but I think, like, the internet, unfettered internet access, it is ruining things, I think, but also parenting. When our children are not being parented, because how the hell can you as a parent teach a kid about the dangers of the internet, ideologies, all this shit, if you yourself have no fucking clue what's going on the internet? How can you do it? That's why parents who take no interest in what their kids are doing, who just go, okay, play Roblox, I don't care. They have no idea that on Roblox, strangers can just talk to their kids. Like, hello? I don't know, like, I remember being a kid and playing, like, RuneScape, and I remember someone asking me, like, what my name was, and I don't know, this always stuck out to me, because we had our computers in, like, the living room, so this meant that, like, we couldn't get up to anything no good, because our parents were always around, right? Which I think was pretty smart. I think it was a pretty smart thing. I think if I have, my kids, they're gonna be in the computer room, and we're all gonna be in the computer room. No secrets. I think having, like, devices that have so much, like, capability, so much free will, and having that in your bedroom where it's just you and you, like, close the door, you have, oh my god, it's insane. Because I remember I started typing my name to this person, because I'm like, I don't fucking know what this means. What does my name mean? I don't fucking know. It's my name. And thank god, at the time, I couldn't even spell my own name right. I couldn't spell my own name right, but I was typing out my name to this person on RuneScape, and my dad looked over and he was like, what are you doing? I don't understand how he just knew. Like, he wasn't even focused on what I was doing. He was just sitting next to me on his computer. And it was amazing, because I didn't feel like I was being suspicious. But he looked over and he checked what I was doing. He was like, don't do that. And he explained to me why you don't do that stuff. And unfortunately, I'm beginning to think that that's just like a real rare parenting technique, Actually, like, seeing what your kids are doing, knowing the games that your kids are playing, how the online works, like, yeah, apparently that was a rare thing. Apparently we're not doing that. Yeah. She did better than the stabbers we've been having lately. Natalie Lynn Ropnow childhood photos. She's in Agatha now. I don't even know what the fuck Agatha is. It's probably something insane to these people. Bro. Yeah, I think the problem is that when these shootings happen, you don't ever really know much about, like, the person, what they're trying to do, and stuff like that, and then it's only, like, a year later when, I guess, relevant information, like, investigations have been done, news has been cleared, people get, like, reporters are able to report. It's like, by the time that you're able to actually report on, like, the details of these things, nobody's really, like, paying attention anymore, and I think that's sad, and that sucks, because who the fuck knew about, like, the aftermath of this? Like, I believe I do remember when this shooting happened, but I never heard anything else about it. The online networks the two teenagers inhabited have an array of influences, ideologies, and aesthetics to varying degrees of commitment and sincerity. They ascribe to white supremacist, anti-Semitic, racist, neo-Nazi, occult, or satanic beliefs. And that's another problem that I have with the Palestinian movement, is that it generally does feel like the Nazis have co-opted it, and the problem is that people who actually have, like, real decent beliefs, who want to be good people, they're not trying to fight the neo-Nazis, or, like, the Nazis who have joined their ranks. Then, in fact, what I see is, I feel like I see a lot more people being like, you know what, fuck yeah, people being like, yeah, Hitler should have finished them, What? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell when you're looking at online stuff. It's hard to tell who was just, like, a normal person who just, like, just cares so deeply to the point where they've gone around to the other side, the other circle. I can't believe it. I can't believe in 2025 we have people talking about how, like, you know, World War II was actually, like, based or whatever. It's, like, so fucked. Yeah. It was interesting. My friend was telling me about how he sees that there's a lot of things that happen in, like, these message boards, like stuff like 4chan, talking about how things that were once just, like, in these fringe communities become mainstream, like pilling, you know, like black pilled, red pilled, blue pilled. All the pilling, like, rhetoric that you see was once something that, like, fringe weirdos said to each other to make themselves, I don't know, feel better about their circumstances, right? Like, being an incel was at one point, I'm sure, something that was only very niche and has become a very, like, mainstream kind of thing. I don't know. It's interesting how this radicalization is happening. It's very sad, and I don't know if the social media ban is gonna curb it. I don't know if it's gonna fix anything. I'm not really too sure, to be honest. So far, I haven't seen anything that great. I myself am not going to trust places like Discord to handle my information to prove my age. I'm just not doing that. So, yeah. What do we have here? We had a Minneapolis school attacker obsessed with the idea of killing children. Like, what the fuck is this? And then again, we have, in a news conference on Thursday, acting U.S. Attorney General for Minnesota, Joseph Thompson, said the shooter expressed hate towards many groups, including the Jewish community, and towards President Trump. Okay. But it's becoming like, they're just like, yep, okay, there was a shooter, alright. What are they? Oh, they just, like, hate all these different groups of people? Okay. So, yeah, I guess, Jesus, that'll probably do it for today. My cats really want me to feed them. But, I don't know. Like, of course, I want Palestine to be free. I think that we can still fight for Palestine, the Palestinian people, but we can also admit that anti-Semitism is at an all-time high, I would say. I think that it's becoming worse. And I don't know, this, like, senseless killing of people, it's not going to do anything, it's not going to change anything. I don't think people should celebrate. I don't think anyone's celebrating what happened at Bondi. No reasonable people, but yeah, I guess that's just, like, my final thoughts on the thing. I think that we are in a really tough position with things that are post-COVID. The youth of today, it's not looking good, and I do kind of believe that it's to do with the lack of parenting. I'll just say that. I mean, you know, the problem is like, sometimes you have a fine family, you have fine experience, and Ella. Sometimes, you know, people just they get into these warped worlds, these warped worldviews, and you know, I don't know how you'd be prepared to get your kid out of that, you know, like. But that's why I think that people should be politically involved. People should be listening. They should be learning about history. History gives you so much context to, like, the world that we live in, and I think that everyone has a duty to educate themselves on that stuff, because if you're not educated, then someone is going to tell you what they think happened and what they think about it. And I don't know if you can really trust a lot of people with their, like, opinions on these kind of things. I feel like at the end of the day, you need to come up with your opinions yourself. You need to read fucking book. Can we read books again, guys? Alright, I don't know how to end this. My thoughts are with the people who were harmed at Bondi, their families, especially so soon, like with Christmas and stuff. I mean, then again, I don't think Jewish people celebrate Christmas, but it's still, like, Christmas is a time where everyone gets time off usually, everyone can go see their families, catch up. I'm sure a lot of people were looking forward to that time period of spending time with their families. I mean, 10-year-old Matilda was probably looking forward to, you know, spending school holidays just, you know, relaxing. I don't know, doing what kids do, which is hopefully playing outside and not being on the computer. Not playing Roblox, bro. So, on that note, I guess I'll say goodbye.